Hello and welcome to In Defense of a Movie Podcast. On this episode, we are tackling 2010's The Last Airbender. Sitting on Rotten Tomatoes at a 5% critical rating, a 30% audience rating. This was distributed by Paramount. Of course, it's a Nickelodeon film. Directed, written, produced by the one and only M. Night Shyamalan. Aaron, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Are you ready to talk about this
I think
bizarre
I am.
film?
Very bizarre.
So, we did a bit of an experiment with this film, where you've watched the entire cartoon, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole series.
Yes.
So you're approaching this. How would you describe yourself? Would you say that you're a fan of it?
Yeah, because I've watched it. I watched it once when it was like airing on TV, and then I just recently watched it again on Netflix, and so like I'm quite familiar with the show.
Okay. So the experiment we're doing is you're coming in having watched the series multiple times, and I'm coming into the movie knowing literally nothing about it. I've never watched any Last Airbender Avatar stuff at all. So we're approaching this movie basically because it seems, from what I read online, it seems like most of the hate towards this movie is the discrepancies and things they changed between the movie and the series. So I'm coming in blind, looking at it solely as a standalone film. And I think you're coming into it with all the background knowledge of why this is actually maybe not a good movie. So this budget was about $150 million, and they spent about $130 million on advertising. And I think the box office take was just shy of $320 million. So I think it broke even, but only just. And of course, the critical score. This movie, Aaron, made a lot of people very, very mad.
Yep, myself included.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Can you describe to me, give me the cliff notes as to what the Avatar series is about?
Okay, so do you want me to do the movie and then also kind of explain where the cartoon goes as well?
Yes, because I kind of want to assume, let's assume that nobody that's listening to this has ever seen this series. Okay.
So the movie follows, and I'm going to call him Aang, not Ung, like the movie did, because I don't know who else that made, it made me rage. Just the mispronunciation of, the names from the anime to the movie. I don't understand why they had to do that. Anyway, sorry.
Just a quick note there. I read that M. Night Shyamalan wanted to do honor to the original Asian pronunciation of the names, and that's why he did that.
I don't know. Okay, I guess that makes sense. But what's stupid is it's this show. It's based on the show, right? So it's why wouldn't you just do what the show did?
Right.
Sorry.
No.
I'm gonna
get
a little heated here. Just a little warning for everyone.
That's good. Let's ride this wave. Let's see where it goes.
So the movie is so the Avatar is a being that exists in whatever this world is that has control over the four elements. So air, water, earth, fire. And he is the only one that can control all four elements. While in this world, there's others who can obviously only control one of them. And so what happens is about 100 and whatever something years ago, he discovers that he is the Avatar, and he freaks out. He runs away, and he in the show, he gets kind of it's a whole emotional thing that he goes through because he realized that his life is turned upside down and it's no longer going to be normal anymore. And so that's why he runs away. And while he runs away, he gets caught in a big storm. And while he's caught in the big storm, he goes into this thing called the Avatar state, which is they don't really reference in the movie, but that's what happens to him when he glows blue. And so the Avatar state is kind of a self-preservation mode / OP mode. And
That was one of my questions written here was, what's the significance of him turning blue?
Yeah. So, they don't explain that at all in the movie.
Okay.
So that's what happens when he like capsizes or whatever happens in this storm, and then he's like about to drown, and then he kind of goes into the Avatar mode, and he like freezes himself or whatever, and then he gets frozen in ice for like 100 years until Katara and Sokka, her brother, which I guess I should tell you who they are in the movie here. So Sokka is played by Jackson Rathbone. Is that it?
That's pretty cool name.
That's a very cool last name. And Katara is played by, is it Nicola Peltz? Okay, yeah. Sorry. So they find him in ice, and then obviously once they find him in ice, he frees himself, and they start going on a journey to like find him. And well, okay, sorry. So they find him, then the Fire Nation invades their like little village in the South Pole, and
right.
And then Aang realizes what has happened, like, in this 100 years that he's been frozen, and how the Fire Nation has, like, taken control over everything and has started this, like, huge war. And so he feels responsible for it, and so now he starts to, like, move forward to try to learn how to bend the other elements. And and then he goes on a journey to find teachers to teach him like how to bend the elements, and as he does, he kind of like starts not an uprising. Well, in the movie he starts like, that's how they do it, is they visit other villages and they start an uprising, and then eventually they make it to the North Pole. It's the North Pole, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. They make it to the North Pole, where he like meets someone to teach him how to waterbend and all that stuff, and then obviously the Fire Nations come and they attack. And so the first movie is based on the first season of the cartoon. So there is a so it like follows it quite closely. Like that's where where the movie ends is like right around where the cartoon ends. But yeah, I don't know. What are some of your questions that you like that this brought up to you?
Well, right out of the gate, there were a couple red flags for me on this film. Yeah. The very first red flag was, why is M. Night Shyamalan directing a children's movie?
Yeah.
Second red flag was when it said Book 1, water, right off the top of the film. I immediately was, as a person who's not a fan, immediately I'm going, oh, so is this broken into parts? So there's going to be multiple books throughout the movie? Or is this... But then, of course, after I watch it, I start researching it, and I realize, oh, no, this is like a failed trilogy kind of thing.
Yeah.
The third strike was... Like, I knew in my heart that this movie was going to start with narration, but I was still annoyed that it happened. Yeah. Like, for me, it was just like the kiss of death right off the top, where I was like, oh, no. Like, here's the narration. Here's, like, the Book 1. And I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm not prepared to defend this film yet. But so, a couple of the questions I have off the bat that I'll bounce off you, and then you can kind of just, throw them at me. So... As far as ethnicities, for a while there, it seemed like I couldn't tell what the ethnicity of anybody was supposed to be.
For me, this was an incredible opportunity to be culturally diverse and be organic at the same time. And so, the thing about anime is that it's an art form that includes culturally ambiguous features. That's what they do. Big eyes, and sometimes blue eyes, and sometimes big, Indian eyes, and everything is very, interesting, sharp features in this. And it's meant to see yourself in it. That's the art form. And so all cultures see themselves in those faces. Noah Ringer is Aang. There's no one on the planet that's more like Aang. These are not coincidences. That is the art form. The art form is multicultural. You see it in their look, and that's how the art form was born. And the show borrows from, Sanskrit word avatar. It borrows from Hinduism, from Buddhism. It has Japanese influences and Thai influences, and everything you can imagine. All the cultures mixed in. There's a million ethnicities in the tent table. In the tent where we were eating lunch, you just see it was like United Nations, and it's one of the things I'm most proud about.
Aaron, what is the nationality of these people? Is it like a fantasy tribe, race, or is this based on like actual people?
Okay, so in the show, it's not really based on anything. It kind of just draws from like different cultures. A lot of them being of like the Asian one, because like I think one of the previous forms of the Avatar, because like every time the Avatar dies, it's like he's reborn, right? And so in a previous life, he was like a woman, and he was like a geisha, like warrior person. And so like that's definitely straight out of geisha is Japanese, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so it's like takes culture from that. I kind of actually like what they did in the movie, because I just wish that, because like what they gave like all the like the firebending nation, like they were all Indian, and so like I thought that was like really cool. Obviously not the like background characters or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was where they messed it up, because they like brought these characters in, but then like the background characters were like of a different like nationality, you know?
This is what like really confused me about this film, is I didn't know how everyone sort of related to each other, because everyone seemed like they were in a tribe, so to speak, or like a nation of peoples.
Yeah.
But that it was very diverse, and almost to a point where like, it kind of confused me like a lot.
Mm-hmm. So I think what he was trying to do was like make these like these different tribes a certain race, but you obviously can't have like that, like all the extras be that race as well. And so, or like you can't, and so it just made it weird and confusing rather than like cool, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was very disorienting for me. Not that I needed everyone to be specific races, but in my head, whenever I'm thinking fantasy, I'm thinking like, okay, there's this group is the elves, this group is the hobbits, or everyone kind of fits a certain, demographic, so to speak. But in this movie, it was very disorienting right off the top. Yeah. So, okay, that was kind of my first question.
I wish that they made the firebenders German.
Yeah, hey. Well, what are they in the cartoon? Like, are they a specifically different race?
No, everyone has like an Oriental kind of background, kind of like they look like they're some form of Asian, but in the cartoon they're fairly like, I don't know, it's fairly loosely drawn where it's like left to interpretation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's very interesting to me. See, because I wonder how you would like if you are making a movie of this, I wonder what is the best approach to that kind of thing. You know?
Yeah. Well, and that's what I mean is like I like what he tried to do, but he didn't like 100% commit, which threw it off.
And some of the extras look super doofy, like especially the water the water nation. There's some extras, man. They just look like accountants or something. Like there's some pretty doofy looking extras in the background.
Yeah, and I think that
they do not look like warriors.
I think that definitely took you out of the movie, which was like a bad thing.
So are all the peoples of these nations, are they more or less all warrior style tribes, or are they just kind of everyday folk who just happen to be able to control elements?
No, okay, so there is people who can control the elements, and then there are people who have no fire bending ability. Bending ability.
Bending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sokka, who is the brother, he is like, he was like one of the most disappointing characters in this entire movie, because in the show, he has like an awesome like character change and everything, because he grows up as like the way that it happens in the story, and like you hear him reference his dad in the movie, right? And so what happens is, like, the Fire Nation starts, like, a war. All the men in the southern tribe, like, leave the village to go fight against the Fire Nation. And Sokka is, like, the only, like, he's, like, the oldest male that was left there. And so he feels responsible for, like, taking care of the village and, like, taking care of Katara and, like, all this stuff, right? But in the movie, he's just, like, I don't know, just kind of, like, brooding the whole entire time. And yeah, like, he has, like, an awesome character build where he, like, overcomes all this stuff. He's skeptical about, like, water bending and all this stuff, and he eventually, like, accepts it all and, like, turns into, like, an awesome warrior himself. And goes through, like, all this major character development, and also provides, like, a comedic relief in the show. And they completely butchered his character in the show, and he just is, like, brooding the whole entire time. And I don't know. I see. He was one of my favorite characters in the cartoon, and so I was, like, very very disappointed to see the way that he was portrayed in it. Actually, they portrayed every character pretty badly in this.
Well, this is interesting because, like, none of what you just said translated on screen for me.
No.
I wouldn't have picked up any of that.
No, and that's why there's so much hate.
There wasn't even, like, hints of that, you know, from an outsider point of view.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to, for this next question, we're going to jump way ahead in the film.
Okay.
But again, I have a suspicion about this. Maybe I'm right. Let's see. Who or what is that dragon spirit that he talks to? And is that in the cartoon?
Yeah, okay. So that is different too. In the cartoon, so he is the Avatar, and the way that they describe the Avatar is, like, not only does he have control of those 4 elements, but he also is the bridge between the spirit world and, like, the earthly world. And so he is able to go into, like, the spirit realm and communicate with, like, different spirits. And when he is in the spirit realm, he can also talk to his previous, the previous avatars, right? And
cool.
The one previous avatar before him was a firebender. And he had a dragon that he rode, and the dragon originally contacts, like, Aang and tells him to come to, like, this place to get into contact with, like, the previous avatar before him, because it's going to be a guide, right? Like, he's going to be the guide and explain a bunch of stuff to him. In the movie, they cut all of that out, and it was just the dragon that he was talking to, because, like, I assume that obviously you just can't translate everything over, you know, because the movie would have been, like, 7 hours long or something like that.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. I have a thought. I have a thought about that we'll get to after the questions.
Okay.
Because it might not sound like we're going anywhere with this, but I do have some pretty solid thoughts about how to defend this and what I did appreciate about it. So, I don't want people to mistake these questions as it's more for my education, because like you and I didn't talk about this before recording it. This is all very, this is all very organic here. But okay, my next question. And again, if you're very versed in the Avatar Last Airbender universe and you're pulling your hair out right now, that's okay. Just bear with me here. We're gonna get there. Okay. Question. It seems to me, again, jumping way ahead in the film, but I'm kind of all over the place here in my notes, but it seems to me that there's a certain point in time where that general makes fire out of nothing.
Yeah.
And they even comment on it as if it's like a big reveal, like, oh, he's bending fire out of nowhere. But it seems like throughout the film, there just conveniently happens to be a little bit of fire everywhere.
Yeah.
And that the firebenders need existing flames to be able to bend their fire. Like, if I was the Water Tribe and I was defending my city, I would make sure that there wasn't a single torch burning in the entire village. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my question to you was, The bending of the elements, do they need an existing source to be able to bend it, or can they create it?
Okay, so this is very interesting because in the show, and this I will admit I don't remember like quite correctly, but I'm pretty sure that fire is they don't need any fire around them to bend it. Like they can bend it from like it can come out of their bodies. And yeah. And then but like the weird thing that I found was that firebenders were able to produce fire from their bodies, but waterbenders had to like carry water on them.
Oh.
So like that's how the show was. But like the movie did the same thing with the water things, but they made it so that the firebenders had to have like fire around them to like bend it.
So each nation, they kind of had slightly different rules.
What do you mean, like in how they bend?
Like, yeah, because they mention and of course end up killing the moon spirit, which is essentially where the water nation gets their power from.
Yeah.
But as someone just kind of driving through this universe, I didn't quite understand where the other nations got their power from then.
Yeah, they never actually like well, you know, it's really interesting because in the show they refer to like animals and spirits and things like that. And so what you see, like you see that big air bison that Aang rides in the movie. It's an air bison, and basically it can bend air as well, but you don't see any of it in the movie. And so the way that they describe it is that early humans learned how to bend from these specific animals. So like earthbenders learned from like badger moles or something like that. Like they were earthbenders and they learned how to do it from the animals. Fire people like learned from dragons, and airbenders learned from like bisons. And then the water one is a little bit weird because they have the ocean and the moon spirit, and I don't necessarily know if they learned bending from them, but like I guess they draw their powers from it.
Yeah. As someone just watching the film, I thought that they learned to bend from that fish.
Yeah.
Which is probably wrong, but I'm saying, you know, from just watching the film.
That's what I mean. The reason why I think this movie flopped as much as it did is because there's such like, you know, the show goes for 3 seasons and like 20 something episodes each season, right? And so you get this like rich background, character development, all this stuff, and unless you are like very versed with the show, like it's very hard to translate into a movie because it's got so much so much background and you know, that like to translate that into a movie is like very, very hard.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. I got 2 more questions, then we're going to get into specifics about the film here. So, my next question is, it seems like it takes a lot of effort for them to do what I would consider very simple things. Mm-hmm. It seems like are they called the Earth Nation? Yeah. It seems like there was like, it took 6 guys doing some dance moves in order to throw like 1 rock. Yeah. And my question is in the cartoon, does it take really that many moves and sequences to like do some of these things, or is it? Do they make it more complicated in the movie? Because if I was like the bad guys, I would just like shoot an arrow into the chest of every one of those guys before they would finish their dance moves.
Yeah. There's no like bow and arrows in that movie, hey?
There doesn't seem to be much conventional weaponry at all. They almost exclusively rely on bending, which is basically, as the casual observer, it just seems like a dance-off. So I was curious if it really takes that much effort to do some of these things in the cartoon.
So in the cartoon, I think that they have a little bit of an easier time with bending. Like the whole time that Katara and Aang are water bending, like Aang picks it up really fast because he's the Avatar, right? And so he's just leagues ahead of everybody. And so he picks it up pretty fast. In the movie, he was like struggling with it. Which didn't make any sense. As far as like the Earthbenders go and stuff, like they do some really cool stuff where they do their movements together, and then they like create things, and they like fight together, and they're all earthbending together, and it looks like really cool. In the movie, it didn't translate so well. Because it's exactly what you said. It just looks like they're doing dance moves for like one little rock to like move.
Yeah, and like, do they specifically only use bending for like attack and defense, or do they use it to build stuff and like create their worlds and, like, is there practical applications to their bending, or is it more just attack and defense? So
this is very interesting, because like if you noticed when they go to the Northern Water Tribe, like you see everything's made out of ice and like has kind of this like it's like a really neat city and everything's made out of ice. When you see the Fire Nation attack, like they have lots of metal, right? And then when you go to the Earth, like their homes and cities are very like made out of stone and things like that. And that's how they're like portrayed in the cartoons as well. So it's like they do use their bending for that sort of stuff. And so like because of the Fire Nation is who they are, they're like able to create things out of metal, and which is like really cool because like when they attack, like they have big metal like monstrosity like machines that they use to like attack. And so each like bending element, like the race of people have their like specific things that like apply to them because they're the only ones to create that stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it kind of does. They kind of do use it for their like everyday life.
Okay, so it's a pretty useful thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I have one more question. Actually, you know what? I have two questions, but one of them's kind of a joke, but I'll leave that one for last. Who is the girl at the end? Because we know we're not getting parts 2 and 3 of this particular run of the franchise.
Okay.
So that they do kind of a I don't know what to call it. I guess like a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally Cliff Curtis, so it's totally a cliffhanger. Get it? Yes. Yeah. Nailed it. Okay, Cliff Curtis, our man. He's the Fire Lord. How do you say his name? I don't want to say it the way they say it. What's that?
Nakudu.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been dying to make that joke.
I love this podcast. Okay.
Yeah. No. Ozai. Fire Lord Ozai is how they say
Ozai.
it in the show. All anyways.
Right. So we get a cliffhanger, Cliff Curtis hanger, where this girl takes off her hood or something, and everyone's supposed to know who that is, unless you're me or anyone who didn't watch it. So Aaron, who is she?
Yeah, okay, so that's Princess Azula, which is Prince Zuko's sister, younger sister.
Yeah.
But she's like a total badass.
Okay.
Yeah, so she is a like referred to as a firebending prodigy, and is just like quite strong in the cartoon, and is more than like very very strong, and like kind of maniacal, and a little bit on like the psycho side as well.
And is she not in the first season of the cartoon? Does she kind of like
she comes in literally like almost at the last, and then once she comes in, it goes into like she starts pursuing them more than like Zuko pursues the Avatar.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And my last question before we get into specifics here is: are you supposed to want to punch Aang in the face?
Yes. Oh man, I don't like to pick people apart on their appearances, but looking at him, I was just like, he's just got that face.
Leave him alone.
I was cheering for Prince Zuko the entire time.
Yeah. So I was reading apparently that what was his name who played Aang there? I didn't think...
Noah Ringer.
Yeah, Noah Ringer. So he is an actual martial artist and apparently won like Texas champion or something like that.
Whoa.
And so he submitted a like video of him doing martial arts with like the blue arrows painted on him to
Nice.
and that's how they chose him. They were like, holy shit, this guy can do martial arts and looks like Aang. He should be in this movie.
But they didn't teach him. I assume that there was an acting coach on hand, but it doesn't seem like.
So what had to happen after they chose him is like a month before they began recording, they sent him to film school, or no, to acting school.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and so like he had like a month of acting school, and they pretty much just picked him because he was a martial artist.
I think this is a perfect lead-in to the rest of our discussion, because the trend that I saw was that the production for this film was so rushed. Mm-hmm. It was a total hack and slash job. Aaron, I found out that over 30 minutes were cut from this final film.
Yeah, it's, we always talk about this, and it just seems, when are studios gonna learn that you can't rush a film and you just gotta let like a guy do his thing? Because this just comes and like bites them back, right? Because they wanted to do, what was it? They wanted to release it in 3D, so they had to rush a bunch of things so that it could be ready for like the summer blockbuster and ready for like 3D. And so like they had to cut things out, and they had to move things around and make the movie like not as good as it could have been.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm of the opinion that the special effects in this film are some of the worst I've seen, maybe ever. I was pretty shocked.
You thought they were that bad?
It was inconsistent because there were some shots I really enjoyed. Yeah. I love the Fire Nation's ships on the water. Those looked superb in my opinion. Again, but I'm not comparing them to the show, so but based solely on what I saw, like there were some effects that were great, but I thought all of the bending effects looked pretty terrible.
The way that they did it was very similar to how the show does it as well. So it's like the show, obviously, with it being a cartoon, you're gonna have like more, like 100 times more like leeway to do whatever you want, right? And like you can stretch your imagination. Unfortunately, putting it into live action, like I thought that with what they were given, like I don't know how they could have made it any better.
Yeah, from the research I did, it seemed like M. Night Shyamalan made this movie for his daughter.
Yeah.
She was really obsessed with the cartoon, and I think wanted to dress as one of the characters for Halloween.
How did you first learn about Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Actually from my daughter, who's 7, and she was obsessed with this show, but I really didn't pay attention to what she was, obsessed about. She's like, oh, this is this show. I'm like, okay, honey, we're going to go out and... It's on again. And I was like, okay, I'll put it on for you. And then for Halloween, she wanted to be Katara. And I'm like, that's what she wanted to be. And I was like, what is this Katara thing? And so she told me all about it. We had to like look it up and all this stuff.
I mean, I'm assuming he approached Nickelodeon Films. I can't imagine it being the other way around and said, hey, I think I would like to do the Last Airbender series. And they said, cool. Again, this is Nickelodeon's most expensive film by far. I didn't even know that Nickelodeon had the kind of budget to make this film, but they did.
It's all those Rugrats reruns.
Yeah, right? And to M. Night Shyamalan's credit, okay, because here's my thought on this. Here's where I'm coming from in terms of a defense. It would seem to me that the only reason that people were going to like this film and is if it was exactly, and I do mean exactly like the cartoon. So I started thinking of it as this. I started thinking, well, you have the cartoon. Like you have that version of this story. Yeah. So why are you so mad about this movie having slight differences? Because I was thinking, well, it's the same, it's my same thoughts about video game adaptations of movies, where I'm like, like, I think the Uncharted movie just lost, like, its 5th or 6th director, you know? Yeah. And I was like, well, why do you need an Uncharted movie? Those games are so stinking cinematic. It's already a movie, you know? Yeah. So I was looking at Last Airbender thinking people are really mad at this film because it craps all over the source material.
Mm-hmm.
But the source material is so stinking good that I'm it's almost like why be upset about a reinterpretation if all you wanted to do was see the cartoon but with real people playing them instead of the animated images.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating discussion because it kind of took me down a few different rabbit holes in terms of like adaptations in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
We like to paint this expectation on adaptations that it has to be absolutely true to the source material.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'll give you some examples of adaptations that were awesome. For instance, Jurassic Park, adapted from Michael Crichton's novel. In Jurassic Park, there's many differences. There's this whole scene with the T-Rex, chasing them down a river. There, John Hammond dies in that book. Spoilers. A lot of different people die and live, and there's so many differences. And yet that movie, that franchise is still going to this day, and it's a beloved movie.
Yeah.
Take the X-Men, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The X-Men cartoon. Super beloved show. You and I both love that show like crazy and grew up watching it.
Yeah.
That first X-Men movie. Now, Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman, was like, he still has the record as the longest running superhero performance in movies, right?
Yeah.
Yet he never once puts on the iconic costume.
Mm-hmm.
So we have an adaptation, and yet we have a complete reinterpretation of it. Like in my mind, Wolverine's like 5'3", and he's like, just this rage monster.
Yeah.
But on screen, Hugh Jackman's like what, 6'1", 6'2", he is night and day different than what Wolverine is in the comics and in the cartoon.
Yeah, he's like the American version.
Yeah.
Tall, dark, and handsome.
Yeah. So I was trying to put my finger on what sets apart adaptations that piss people off from adaptations that make people happy.
Okay.
And I can't figure it out. I can't find the formula. I was wondering if it was plot points, and I don't think it's plot points. Because I started running that through the metric in my head, and it didn't make sense. I thought, well, maybe it's appearances. And I was like, well, no, I don't think appearances matters either. And so, Aaron, do you have any thoughts about this?
Yes, I have a ton of thoughts about this. And I feel like this might lead into how, so with X-Men, they have Hugh Jackman who comes in and plays Wolverine. Obviously, not at all how Wolverine is portrayed in the comics or the show or anything like that, right?
Right.
But when he comes in, he does that character justice, right? Like he takes it and he turns it into his own thing, and he makes him like an awesome character,
right?
Even though it's not quite fitting to it's not quite true to the show or to the comic books. In Avatar: The Last Airbender, there, like I was saying about Sokka, like he has an absolute awesome character development. Same with Katara. Like one of the huge thing, it's even like you can read about it where M. Night Shyamalan was like saying his daughter was just hugely inspired by Katara because she's like a strong woman, and like she's portrayed like that in the show where she's referred to as like the mother of the group, but at the same time has like strong ideals, cares about people, and is like compassionate, and like she's just like a very good character and has like a very good character build and everything. Did you pick up any of that in the movie?
I'm gonna have to say no.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And same with Aang. Is he's essentially a child, and he got like past this huge thing to him, and of course he's gonna freak out, and he's gonna panic, and he's gonna do things. But then he like realizes that no, he has to accept his destiny and become the Avatar and like fight the Fire Nation. And so there's like, I think he's supposed to be 12 years old in the show or in the movie as well. And here's this 12-year-old kid who is now like starting a uprising and doing all this stuff and like just major character development, like realizing who he is and stuff. And like, again, does that translate in the movie at all?
No,
no.
Not at all.
And that's the problem. And that's where this movie fell short, is because like I said, there's just so much rich background and history and stuff about like characters and like and who they are as people and how they got there. And this movie I found so odd. Like, I feel like in this movie there was just like maybe 5 minutes would go without any talking. Did you notice that?
There were a couple times,
long stretches of like no talking and things like that, and it's just like you can't have
and
that.
A lot of really awkward close-ups during the dialogue.
Yes.
Like, really awkward close-ups.
Yeah, and so that's at least my theory of like if you want to change something, that's completely fine, but you have to bring it justice. And M. Night Shyamalan. Am I saying? I can never say his last name.
I think that's right.
He just like did not bring justice to these characters, and that's why the movie fell short.
Gotcha. So, based on what you just said, I think what I'm thinking is the make or break in adaptation is characterization.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You can have cosmetic differences. You can have story tweaks, I think, because people do understand that in a movie you have to plot things a little quicker than, say, a season. But what you don't mess with is overall characterizations.
Mm-hmm. Like who that character is at the core of them. Yeah, you can't like mess with that. And I don't feel like Wolverine as like he was ever they didn't mess up who he was as like a person, you know? I always think of that scene where it's which movie is it? Is it Future Past or which? Anyway, so they go into the bar and they see Logan and he like gives him the finger and tells him to F off, right? Like that's
right.
that's like a Wolverine characteristic, and they like hit that.
So it's characterization. That's the key. Okay. That makes a lot of sense to me. From trying to see, because it's funny because I watched it and I was like, okay, cool. It's kind of just like a, kind of a lower budget. It felt low budget to me, which is funny because it's not. But I was like, okay, it's just kind of like a low budget kids film that people didn't seem to like. Mm-hmm. And then I go on Rotten Tomatoes and I see that 5%, and I'm like, whoa, okay, like people really didn't like this. And then I start digging, and there seems to be this fandom behind it, like this fanaticism that's just like ripping this film apart. And it's not just the fandom, like the creators of the actual show apparently hate this movie and pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
And this movie won the Golden Raspberry for Worst Picture of 2010.
Yeah.
And so when it came to like finding a way to defend this movie, suddenly I was thrown for a loop because I'm like, well, I don't think... How am I supposed to convince like an entire fandom that there's some redeeming qualities in this film?
Yeah.
What I will defend, Aaron, for sure, is the production of this. Because M. Night Shyamalan could have done anything he wanted that year. But his daughter loves this character, and this was very much a passion project from that point of view.
Yeah.
Like, there was even an interview I read where M. Night Shyamalan, before this movie came out, he claimed that it was the greatest film he'd ever made.
Yeah.
Like, he was so excited to release this. Now, I have to imagine it from his point of view, because he's the guy who likes to write twists, who likes to subvert expectations, quote unquote. He's like the Ryan Johnson of the time.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine he's sitting there and he's like, okay, I have all the source material. How do I condense this and how do I put my own spin on it and yet kind of honor what's come before? And how do I condense this down into a 2-hour movie?
Yeah.
So in my mind, he goes about doing that. Then, of course, he gets James Newton Howard to do the music. And I love the music. The music, in my opinion, defend the music top notch.
Is probably the best part.
Yeah, James Newton Howard and M. Night Shyamalan have done like they're like film pals. I think they've done almost what do they have done like 5, 6, 7 films together, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he crushes it every time. So
Yeah.
anyway, so he's got the music, he's got the studio backing, he's got a budget enough to do something with this. But then what I think happened is studio interference.
Yeah.
They moved up the timeline, said, no, we need it done by now. We don't have enough time to finish all these special effects. We're cutting 30 minutes out of the film because we can't afford to get the 3D conversion done in time. So you're going to have to hack and slash and reshoot and get this thing out.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm defending this film, as just a kind of a passive observer, I'm defending the production and saying, look, if you had to condense an entire season of a beloved TV show into a 2-hour movie, only to have the studio come along and say, nope, 30 minutes have to go, and we're releasing it on this date instead of this date. Like, what are you gonna do, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, we can argue about whether M. Night Shyamalan's actually a good director or not, because he's so hit and miss. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's very hit and miss.
But yeah, Aaron, I think this one, man, just comes down to production.
I think, from my point of view, obviously with being such a fan of the cartoon, there was a few things that I like. I like that the fact that they tried to get an actual martial artist to portray Aang. Not a fan of the one that they did choose, not especially his face, but but I like that they tried that, because watching the movie, or in the cartoon, Aang airbenders are supposed to be really nimble and almost like parkour type people, doing all these tricks. And I thought he did a pretty good job in that sense, with the martial arts and the dancing.
Yeah, there was kind of another thing to defend besides the music. There was kind of a beauty to the movements. It was very zen, very inner strength kind of thing. I really like the scene. I don't know if this is in the cartoon, but I really like the scene of him standing at the water's edge by himself when he's trying to learn to bend water.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see how powerful he is. The water starts to rumble, but he has kind of this inner conflict where he sort of seizes up and thinks he can't do it.
Yeah.
I really liked that character building, because that was classic hero's journey where you refuse the call, you know? You're I can't do this.
Yeah.
No. Stuff.
Yeah, definitely. They did a really good job on that sort of stuff. And just the even with Zuko, Dev Patel, he did a really good job in learning martial arts and all that stuff, and the fight scenes. I thought they did really good, the best that they could do with that stuff.
Yeah, Zuko was my favorite part of the film. I don't know what he was supposed to be in the cartoon. I don't know how
he's a whiny
his portrayal
bitch
was.
in the cartoon.
Yeah, hey.
Oh yeah.
In the movies, I really liked him. He had this really tortured thing. There's that scene where he's got his hood up and he asks that kid what he knows about the prince.
Yeah.
And the kid spouts off all this expository dialogue.
Yeah.
Which I assume, Aaron, was a total reshoot because they had to lop out the scene of that actually happening.
Yeah.
But the look he gets, the tortured expression he gets as he's recounting what his dad did to him and everything, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's some dark stuff.
Yeah. No. I thought they did good with that, because you don't actually see that happening, and it's kind of like a memory recall in the cartoon. So
it's rough.
Yeah, and so there was some things that he actually did that were really good, and because we know that a movie can never be a direct translation of the cartoon, and so I really thought that the way that he tried to portray the story and how he had to try to condense it, it wasn't that bad, because what happens in the cartoon is, like I said, they go to try to learn how to do all these try to get Aang teachers to teach him how to bend the elements, and and as they're doing that, they're stopping at villages and they're liberating people and they're helping people. But in the movie, they're let's start an uprising, and and that's how they go about starting the uprising, as they actually say it. And so I don't think that was such a bad way if you're running into time constraints and whatnot. Like, I actually didn't mind that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Like I said, I think that if they would have found a better way to like push the characteristics of each character and make the characteristics and the essence of the characters more similar to the cartoon, then I think this movie would have been like a way more successful. Yeah, and like Zuko, Zuko is like really like probably one of the best characters because like he's just torn up inside. And all through the cartoon, he's like torn up, and he only like realizes like deals with all his like issues at the very last season.
Yeah, it was cool because he reminded me a lot of like an Anakin Skywalker kind of archetype, and I was totally into it. But it's frustrating because I liked his character better than Aang, so whenever Aang kind of got the best of him, I was always kind of frustrated because I just didn't like Aang at all.
Yeah.
Suffice to say though, Aaron, I definitely am going to watch the TV show now because
you think so?
I feel like this movie is a perfect gateway into the series at large because if you hadn't watched this series yet and you watch this movie, there's so much compelling stuff in here. And then when you see that rating and you see people saying, oh, it's nothing like the cartoon's way better. Like if there's even like a 10% thing that you liked about this film, like you would want to watch the TV show. So it's kind of like a gateway into the universe at large. It's almost like a trailer for the series. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point because I never thought of it that way because like obviously I did it the opposite way.
Well, because I'm a pretty pop culture savvy guy, and I'd never sat down to watch the cartoon. But I mean, I was aware of it, but I knew a lot of people at the time who actually weren't aware of it. So I thought like when this movie was coming out, as much as there was a strong fandom behind it, I think it was a lot of people's first time kind of hearing about it.
Yeah.
And so for them, I want to say, I hope that they watched this and thought, oh, that was kind of like a neat trailer for the series. I'm going to watch the series now. And then they're like, oh man, this is way better than the movie.
Yeah. The cartoon is really good. As someone who watches like a lot of animes and things like that. And first of all, I have to also state this because like this is a huge deal, is people always refer to the cartoon as an anime.
Right, I was going to ask you about that.
It's not an anime. So for it to be an anime, it has to be produced and like made in Japan. And like this cartoon is made in an American studio. So it's like not an anime. And anime fans will rage at people every time they call Avatar like an anime. It's not an anime.
I saw that debate online a lot where people were like, what makes an anime? And yeah, it was pretty funny. It kept coming up.
Anyways, the cartoon is like I watch a lot of animes, and like the thing about animes is you have a lot of like they go like an anime can go, like I'm watching one anime right now that's in 900 episodes, you know, and there's so much rich story and like rich character development and all this stuff that goes on. And in like American kind of cartoons, you don't really get that. It's kind of like point A, like going from point A to point B. And like, that's how everything is kind of structured. And you won't see a cartoon go for like that many seasons or that many episodes. But Avatar, like the Last Airbender cartoon has like the animated series has like is close to an anime out of like any American kind of cartoon. And so like it's like a very good cartoon, and I always recommend people to watch it because it's like it's got like great character development, great like backstory, and like all this rich kind of like history in it. So I definitely would recommend watching the cartoon to anyone who's like doesn't mind that sort of stuff.
The last thing I want to defend about this film, and this one, this is interesting because a lot of times this particular department doesn't jump out at me, but it definitely did in this film, is the costume design. Again, I don't know how it stacks up to the cartoon, but I thought the costume design in this film was fantastic. And I thought it looked so good. And I looked it up. The costume designer for this film was a lady by the name of Judianna Makovsky. And Judianna Makovsky turns out, if you don't know any much about costume design, she's an absolute legend. She did the costume design for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, which essentially set the costume design for like the next 7 films, her work. She did The Hunger Games. She did Avengers Endgame and Infinity War.
Oh, wow.
And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Civil War, Goosebumps, Winter Soldier.
Holy
like,
smokes.
she even did X3 The Last Stand.
Yeah.
So as far as costume, and again, she has like 45 costume designer credits. But what I'm trying to say is, if you are interested at all in costume design in film or just in general, The Last Airbender has some pretty cool costumes, and it's definitely worth checking out her work because, yeah, man, I won't say it's her best work now that I know what some of the other stuff is that she's done. But it is pretty terrific, and she's definitely a total unit. Like, between her and James Newton Howard, there's some serious firepower in the production.
Yeah, no, I thought the costumes were quite good. Like, obviously they're not exactly the same as what you would get on the cartoon, but she did justice to them.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, like, because you have the challenge in this movie, I think, is this having the separation between the different nations, but then kind of having like the variations in between them and kind of deciding how those costumes are built, what kind of materials they're made out of. There's so much that goes into that I found really fascinating. And I think she did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
So Aaron, oh yeah, also random fact, this film was mostly shot in Philadelphia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And by Philadelphia, we're probably talking like a warehouse with a green screen in it. But
Yeah. You know, I didn't hate the like cinematography that went on in this movie. I thought it was decent.
There was some pretty cool shots. I like when you kind of finally see Aang do his near the end there, his little like kung fu sequence. That was pretty dope.
Yeah.
It does some like zoom slow-mo stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this kid's kind of cool. That was when it kind of had me, where I was like, okay, he's definitely got some skills.
Yeah. He didn't do that bad of a job portraying Aang. Like, I think I'm just hating on him.
Are we being hard on him?
Leave him alone!
Yeah, I think we are being a little bit hard. But, like honestly, he didn't... the way that Aang is in the cartoon, he's very, like, childlike and just likes to, like, laugh and have a good time, basically.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I would, like I said, there is some positives, and I think that, yeah, the studio, I'm going to blame the studio on this one. They ruined it.
Yeah, I firmly believe that M. Night Shyamalan's heart was in the right place on this one. Mm-hmm. I really feel like he just, he underestimated the fan base. I don't think he misunderstood the source material. I think he misunderstood the passion behind the source material. And he thought that he could take liberties and just, put his own fingerprint on it.
Yeah.
And I think that was his downfall on this one.
The cartoon is very, like, humorous. And it's kind of senile humor, too, where it's just, like, really weird. And none of that translated into the movie. And I think that's one of the things that people loved so much about the cartoon as well. And
yeah.
it would, for me, it would have been nice to see that. Like, there's this guy that, like, sells cabbages in the cartoon.
Told you already. No vegetables on the ferry. One cabbage slug could destroy the entire ecosystem of Ba Sing Se. Security! My cabbages!
And it's like, he's like an internet meme and everything. And like, if you talk to anyone who's watched the show, they know him as like the cabbage guy. And like throughout the series, he's always just like somehow in the middle of like a fight sequences and his like cabbage cart gets like ruined and he always yells, "My cabbages!" And it's like a running gag throughout the show. And like, I wish there would have just been like one cabbage cart guy in the movie at some point.
He probably hit the cutting room floor. He probably was in it.
Yeah. Again, there's probably some movie out there with like all the features and everything in it that just makes more sense, and I would like to see that movie.
Yeah. Well, you know what? There is talks that Netflix is in the middle of producing a live action series.
Yeah, that would be. I hope they would be good.
Yeah. So, I mean, you never know. You never know. They could do it justice. If it's one thing about Netflix is they don't seem to be pressured by anyone but themselves to make their content. So if they got the time, they're gonna take the time to kind of get this right. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
You know what would be neat? It would be interesting if M. Night Shyamalan graced us with a director's cut.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if it's just like placeholder visual effects or something, it would be neat to see like what he actually cut out and if that did save the film or if it truly was just a big steaming pile. Because, you know, you don't know what was reshot in order to fill in the gaps of what was cut out. And, you know, there's all sorts of things that go on when people are making movies. You know, people just sit down in the theater and they see the finished product and they say, oh, this isn't what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
But there's so many different reasons as to why that could be, you know? And once you kind of look into some of that stuff, it really feels like M. Night Shyamalan didn't have to do this. It's not like he wanted to commit like career suicide by like pissing off a bunch of people. Like, you know, he wanted to get this right because it was inspiring his daughter. That's I mean, if I was a famous director, you know, and I had kids and my kid was obsessed with something, I would for sure be tempted to try to make a movie out of it.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't be the first director to have done something like that,
No.
you know?
No, didn't like Will Smith make After Earth or whatever for his son? Like, oh, that's another steaming pile of that. maybe there's maybe there's a connection here.
Yeah, maybe there's a cautionary tale to be found here.
If your kids like something, don't make a movie about it.
Oh my gosh, maybe there is, because even Dana Carvey made Master of Disguise for his kids.
Oh man, what did we just discover?
Uh-oh. I need to go lie down.
Man, maybe we could do a season of movies that or like producers or directors made for their children.
Okay, cautionary tale. If your kid says, "Daddy, make me a movie about blank," don't do it. Leave it up to the experts.
Yeah. You're blinded. You're blinded by your child's like whatever love for that show, and then you won't do it justice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that there's a ton of stuff here that we didn't get into. Oh yeah, one of my questions was like the Earth Nation. They're imprisoned on Earth. Like I thought in my head I was like, well, wait a sec, can't they just bust out? Like, what are they doing? You know. Anyway, so I don't know. I'm sure there's a ton of like minor or big details about the differences that we didn't cover. But Aaron, was there anything else that jumped out at you in terms of like defending?
No, not really. Like I think we hit it all. Like I said, they did like the fighting sequences pretty well, and then I didn't mind the special effects and things. Like how else are you going to translate water bending, fire bending, and all that stuff? And like I feel like they did a decent job of it, anyways, for that time and what they had.
Yeah, I felt like the digital transfer for this film was kind of crummy. It didn't seem super crisp, and maybe that's why the effects kind of look crummy to me. Oh, sorry, one last question before we wrap up, just because I was so curious about this. It seems like Aang kind of beats the Fire Nation by basically just intimidating them, and then they're like, oh, that's a big wave, let's go home. Yeah. Is that what happens in the cartoon, or does he actually wipe them out?
Not really. Like in that scene, it kind of happens that exact way, where he just kind of goes into the avatar state and pushes them back, and they like retreat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was curious about that, because that seems to take a lot out of him when he does that.
It's so yeah, it does. So what happens? I think they kill that moon spirit, and then obviously that girl sacrifices her life to become the moon spirit again. And then like the waterbenders all gain control. And like in the cartoon, it's known that the Fire Nation has never been able to successfully defeat the Northern Water Tribe because they were like just that powerful and that hard to reach. Like water is obviously an opposing element to fire. And so like they were always able to hold their own, but they started losing only because the Moon Spirit was killed. And as soon as it came back, they were like able to push the Fire Nation back. And so that's kind of how it happens. And then obviously that coupled with the fact that Aang goes into Avatar state to push them back even further results in them essentially winning that battle. Mm-hmm. Oh, here's a cool thing for you, Dan. The Fire Lord Ozai in the cartoon is voiced by Mark Hamill.
What? Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I was watching it and I was like I didn't realize it the first time I watched it, but now watching it again, I was like, holy smokes, that's Mark Hamill. And it's like,
does he look
awesome.
like Mark Hamill?
No.
Oh.
If Mark Hamill was like slightly Asian looking and had long hair and ripped, then yes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really interesting. See, it's funny because now that I've watched this and kind of learned a bit more about the show, I've recognized The Last Airbender's influence on other mediums and other shows I've watched, which is interesting. Do you know when The Last Airbender, the series, actually was released?
February 2005, and concluded in July 2008.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's actually a little more recent than I thought it was.
I remember being in high school watching this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's interesting then, because I was curious about that. Because I kept thinking at the end about like Neo, how Neo like becomes like a Matrix bender. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, well, Aaron, thank you so much for explaining this movie to me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I feel like if someone was to watch this movie for the first time and they watched it with a friend who was well versed in the series and could fill in those gaps, they would enjoy it a lot more. But,
or we could always just recommend this episode to people before they watch it.
Yeah, just like a compendium while you're trying to sort through everything. All right, so everybody, download the soundtrack because that music is just so epic and awesome. If you're interested in costume design, the lady behind this movie is responsible for designing some of your favorite costumes on film, straight up. And yeah, I mean, it's like I said, me watching it, I wasn't offended by it because I didn't have a comparison. And, to me, it just seemed like a kind of just a Nickelodeon film. Like, my expectations weren't too high to begin with. The acting's not very good, but there is some good acting. The special effects aren't very good, but there is some good special effects. And that's kind of, the story's not very good, but there is some good story. So it's like, I don't know, man. What would you rate this if you had to give it a critical rating?
Okay, so
as a fan of the series,
I gotta do some Cabbage Guy some justice here and give it I'm gonna give it 34 cabbages out of 100 cabbages. And so that translates to what, 34% is about what my critical rating would be of this movie.
Yeah, and that aligns quite nicely with what the audience says. So you know what? I'm not even gonna touch it. That's probably the most clever thing we could come up with. I don't know any deep cuts about this show to be any better than that. So that's for sure. Yeah. 34 cabbages. Yeah. Well, you know what? High hopes for the Netflix version.
Yes, very high hopes.
You know that Netflix has got to bring it now too, right? With all these streaming services coming out. So
I think they will. They know that they gotta tighten things up.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, that is The Last Airbender. I mean, yeah, we both had to dig pretty deep on this one, and I think we found some stuff. I think we did. So yeah. Anyway, thanks so much for listening, everybody, and we hope you're enjoying. We hope you're enjoying the episodes. We want to know what you think of The Last Airbender. Feel free to stop by. Why don't you swing on by to our subreddit? It's IDOMoviePodcast. Let us know what you thought of today's episode. Are you a fan of The Last Airbender, or is it too far from the source material for you to even think about? And we are on Instagram, Twitter. You can email us if you want to say hi that way. And we'll catch you in the next episode.
Bye!